Still time to get your questions in, ladies and gentlemen, using the Q&A tab that you'll see on screen now. Our first question from today's audience, Paul, it dropped in during your segment. It is, of course, open to all of our panelists as well, but we'll start with yourself, Paul. You discussed self-driving cars. Could you perhaps explain in a little bit more detail how AI is being implemented today to make a car self-driving?
There's a lot of sensors on the cars. For example, a camera. The cameras capture images, but cameras don't give a very good sense of depth of how far objects are. So you have cameras that detect things, and AI can analyze the camera images. You could also have radar on the car that detects moving objects and speed and location of moving objects. There's also something called LiDAR, which is a sensor placed on top of the car. It fires thousands of lights per second, light beams per second, and it produces a 3D representation called a cloud point to represent the environment of the vehicle. So you have all these sensors to detect what's around the car. You have GPS data, of mapping data, of where the car is at, and you put all this together and you have a map of where the car is and the objects around the car. And AI can be used for those kind of purposes. And then once you have the map built, you would use AI to make decisions on how to drive, which way to go, what speed to use. And you use AI for that. There are typically many neural networks involved in this. Could be 50, I'm just coming up with a number, but a lot of neural networks. It's not one neural network controls the whole car. Many neural networks will make decisions on how to drive on the map that's put together. And those neural networks all need to be trained. So they are trained using data of humans driving the car. In other words, you have humans driving millions of miles and gathering training data, how the car should be driven. And that data is used to train the neural networks. So what you want the car to do is drive like a human drives. It seems a little strange. You could have a rogue driver on the test, creating test driver that's rogue data. You should try and scrub that out. But even if you have rogue data in your test data, the network will have enough good data so the network will perform well and make good decisions. So that's generally how it works. And as you can see, a lot of different parties involved. The sensor parties, the neural networks, all these different parties come together, and the software, as we talked about before, could be spread over many, many parties and in the cloud too. So that hopefully answers the question.
Thank you so much, Paul. Another question that dropped in during your segment, it relates to the fact that a lot of companies that use AI are moving at such a fast pace. Patents aren't always filed on their inventions. Do you think that's a reasonable approach, or if not, what would you recommend?
Well, software can change at a very fast pace, and software can be obsolete very quickly. And the patenting process can be very slow. It could take 3 years generally. That's probably an average to get your patent, and it costs some money and time. You have to spend time writing the patent application and talking with the inventor. So the concept of just not filing patents, which some software companies do that, they just don't file patents and they just rely on the fast change of their industry, and they're always moving forward. So some companies do that, and there's also a lot of open source software that's software readily available to the public to use. So a lot of software developers do believe more in open source and not patenting and protecting your software. I would say 15 years ago or even more, a lot of software companies just didn't file patents at all. But that's changed as more and more patents get issued. The landscape's a little dangerous to just put your product in the marketplace and not have any patents. You don't have any protection against others. They sue you. You may want your own patents to sue them, and you also want to protect your own inventions. So I don't think the process of just blindly not patenting is a good idea. I think it is better to look at each invention one by one and look at all the issues we discussed here. Like David discussed a lot of issues about copyrights or trademarks, or trade secret. So there's many ways to go about protecting invention, copyrights, patents, or trademarks. And you need to look at each invention individually. Can that invention be reverse engineered? Can can infringement of a patent for that invention even be detected? Because this could be done in the cloud and you have no access to the cloud. So I think the better approach is to look at each individual invention separately and then make a decision how to proceed. The general concept of just not patenting, and some companies do that, I think it's risky, and I guess as a patent attorney, I wouldn't recommend that approach.
Thank you so much. We've got a couple of questions still to go through here. David, this question dropped in a couple of times during your segment here. I think if some countries are beginning to assign personhood to AI, can an AI be listed as an individual inventor in a patent application, say for an expression of, say, music, for example? If an AI creates a musical piece, could they be laid?
Could you repeat that question? I missed a little part of it. Sorry.
Yeah, sure thing. So if some countries are beginning to assign personhood to an AI, could an AI be listed as an individual inventor in a patent application, perhaps for a body of music or some other kind of work?
Well, I think that I think Paul had sort of addressed the question of the idea that you can't have an AI be an inventor, and certainly I think that's probably appropriate in the context of if we're talking about a copyright protection as an author, then certainly my instinct is the same there. The answer is no. To me, the right that's granted to an author, a human author under copyright, reflects really the reward for the author's expending of creative energy and other energy. The government is granting an author a right to this expression because he or she took the time and the energy to create it. So, and there's no similar energy expended by an AI to create something. And in fact, the time that it might take for the creation of a work by an AI might be entirely insignificant. So, you know, an AI might churn out volumes of so-called work simply for the purpose of creating copyrighted content, which, I mean, to me, potentially creates an imbalance in the copyright law that the copyright laws are intended to provide. So, yes, while, you know, there may be some countries that are looking that direction, I think to me, it's a kind of a dangerous course.
Thank you so much. And Nexus, this question is dropped in during your segment. It is, of course, open to our other panelists as well. We'll try and squeeze this in here before we wrap things up for today. But if there was a criminal component to a case, perhaps where there was a loss of life, say, with that self-driving car example, who would face ultimate responsibility? Or is there some type of diffusion when it comes to the penalty, some kind of diffusion of penalty?
Thank you. And so the way it works now, if there is a sort of criminal component, my take would be that the driver of the car would be looked at for that. Right now, they are not, besides, you know, California, where they have limited fully autonomous vehicles on the road, and as it is now, drivers actually have to be in the car as they're testing them. It would be pretty, most folks would be pretty hard pressed to blame their vehicle itself for something that results in harm to someone who's passing by or cyclists, for example. On the question of personhood, as I mentioned before, the European Commission actually passed on that concept. And so, whereas it was proposed to ascribe personhood to AI-based complex system, they actually passed on that and decided not to do that. So we're not there yet where you can necessarily ascribe liability directly to the AI. And so in that particular instance, I would imagine it would be the driver of the vehicle who, and most of the vehicles nowadays that have some form of autonomous driving ability, like the Tesla's autopilot system, required it to pay attention as you drive. And so my guess would be the driver would be responsible.